Oh man, Isuzu Trooper, 3,900 bucks, rare. People like these. I like these. I don't know. So this is a two-door 4x4 diesel. This is an 86. So 86 is kind of early in the generation for these. And what you find with these is that like early in the generation, they were more selling the two doors. And then by the end of this generation, like 88 or 89, 90, 91, by the end of this generation, they were heavier on selling the four doors. Got your little diesel. They had some interesting engine options. They had like I think a 2.7 gas diesel, and then a 2.8 gas V6, and of course the 2.8 gas V6 was just a GM surplus unit because GM at the time period of the 80s was deciding that they were going to repopulate the Earth with the 2.8 liter 60-degree V6 because that had been determined to be the finest, greatest gift to man from God that GM ever graced us with. And they were just going to make enough to put in every vehicle, foreign, import, or domestic. And so they were filling these up with 2.8s because that's what my mom had. My mom had a 2.8, one of these, for about 7 years in the 90s. And I remember being in the drive-thru at Boston Market. I don't even know if that exists anymore. And back then it was not even called that. It was called Boston Chicken. And I sat in the back seat, right? And the really cool thing about the Trooper was you see this pod of 3 gauges in the center. I thought that was so cool as a kid because I could see it from the back seat. I could see that from in between the two front driver's seats, that little gauge pod. And so one night, it was dark. Yes, you got oil, volts, and temp. And one night, I guess it was late. It was already dark. It was probably just winter. But anyways, we're in the drive-thru at Boston Chicken, and I see the temp gauge going up. And I said it was a long time ago. I was not very old. And turned out the head gasket blew, it being a GM 2.8. And my uncle rebuilt it for free, basically, because he was a mechanic. And I think my dad, like, bought him some tools? Took them out to dinner, maybe? I don't know. But he would not allow himself to be paid. Got the Earnhardt stuff inside, which I don't know if I really think the Earnhardt... Why am I not buying this right now? We're in Conyers, and I can see Bob today. I can see Bob. 4x4 diesel, 5-speed, runs, drives, stops good. 4-wheel drive works good, starts easy on cold days. Has an external oil cooler, which means it has a rods upgrade. Neat. Heat works, but no AC. Does have some rust in the back. Has a small oil leak. Great runner and driver, but obviously needs paint and interior work. Yeah, my mom sold hers for a minivan in 1998. And I really never forgave the minivan for replacing the Trooper. Because, who doesn't want a box Trooper? Especially as a freaking 5-year-old, 8-year-old kid, like the Trooper was the coolest thing ever. 4x4 never worked. It got us stuck multiple times on like beaches and shit. We would go to the beach and whatever. Well, and the 4x4, the 4x4 broke a couple times. I remember numerous vehicles yanking us out of places. I remember a lady had a Nissan pickup. I believe at the time, I think it was like a box Frontier or not a box Frontier, a hard body, I guess you would say. Like a optioned out. It was like an optioned out hard body with like the alloys and I want to say a roll cage in 4x4. And a lady stopped in a Maxima and went and grabbed her husband with the hard body, and he pulled us out. Then there was another time we got stuck on the beach. This one's probably the more embarrassing of the two. And a hippie in a VW bus pulled us out. In a damn, like no kidding, like a 60s VW bus. This very long-haired hippie pulled our Trooper out of the sand with that thing. I don't even know how that worked. How did that work? Maybe because the engine is over the rear, it has good traction? I don't know. We had to get pulled out of places with this thing because the 4-wheel drive kept failing. But yeah, those that's the gauge pod. Oil fuel temp. I lied. It's oil fuel temp. But I will never forget sitting in the backseat of Boston Chicken and being like, because I always stared at those gauges, because like I like cars as a kid, and like I just thought, like, gauges. Look at that gauge pod. It's really cool. Like, it's sporty, and again I could see it from the back. I just remember that gauge going on and be like, I don't remember doing that before. The stick shift on this is so long. The stick shift, I remember thinking the stick shift on this thing was as tall as I was, which is probably true. But yeah, 86, this is like 85, 86 was like the beginning of this generation. For whatever reason, in the beginnings of that generation, they sold way more two-doors. Look at the AstroTurf in the bed of this. Does that come with?